The war that changed the world, World War I. A global conflict that reshaped borders, toppled empires, and claimed over 16 million lives. But how did it all begin? How did the world plunge into 4 years of unprecedented destruction? And how did it finally come to an end? This is World War I in 10 minutes, a timeline of key events from the first gunshots to the final peace treaty. Decades before the first shots of World War I were fired, the nations of Europe were already divided into two opposing alliances. On one side was the Triple Alliance, formed in 1882, consisting of Germany, Austria-Hungary and Italy. This pact aimed to counterbalance the growing influence of France and Russia. On the other side was the Triple Entente, established between 1904 and 1907, uniting Britain, France and Russia. These alliances were meant to deter war, but ultimately created a tense and rigid system where conflict between any two nations could escalate into a full-scale global war. When war finally broke out, these alliances ensured that multiple great powers were dragged into the conflict almost immediately. June 28, 1914, one of the most pivotal moments in modern history. In Sarajevo, Bosnia, a young Serbian nationalist, Gavrilo Princip, assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. What seemed like an isolated act of violence ignited a chain reaction of military alliances and political ultimatums. Within weeks, Europe was on the path to war. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia and declared war on August 1, 1914. But the war didn't stay regional for long. Russia, allied with Serbia, mobilised its forces. Germany, allied with Austria-Hungary, declared war on Russia. France, allied with Russia, entered the conflict, and when German forces marched through neutral Belgium, Britain joined the war. Within weeks, Europe was divided between the Allies, France, Britain, Russia and Serbia, and the Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and later the Ottoman Empire. The Great War had begun. Germany enacted the Schlieffen Plan, a strategy designed to avoid a two-front war by quickly defeating France before turning east to fight Russia. Rather than evade France by its common border, German forces pushed through the Netherlands and Belgium, but resistance was stronger than expected. The Battle of the Marne in September halted the German advance, forcing both sides to dig in. What followed was trench warfare, hundreds of miles of fortified trenches stretching from the North Sea to Switzerland. Very quickly, the war had become a brutal stalemate. Amidst the horror of war, a rare moment of peace emerged. On Christmas Eve 1914, along parts of the Western Front, German and Allied soldiers laid down their weapons. In an unofficial ceasefire, they sang carols, exchanged cigarettes and small gifts, and even played football in no man's land. Though brief, the Christmas truce is a powerful reminder of humanity's resilience even in the darkest of times. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, Russian forces invaded Germany and Austria-Hungary, but suffered disastrous losses at the Battle of Tannenberg. Fought between the 23rd and 30th of August in 1914, the battle cost Russia over 250,000 men. The war also spread beyond Europe. Fighting erupted in Africa, the Middle East and the Pacific. The Ottoman Empire joined the Central Powers, while Japan, seeing an opportunity, declared war on Germany and seized its colonies in Asia. The war was now truly global. World War I saw the dawn of aerial warfare. At first, in 1914, planes were used for reconnaissance, mapping enemy positions and directing artillery fire. But soon, fighter planes equipped with machine guns engaged in deadly dogfights. Legendary aces like Manfred von Richthofen, aka the Red Baron, became a household name. Bombing raids were also introduced, marking the first time cities and industrial centres became targets from the sky. Though primitive compared to later wars, aviation had permanently changed the battlefield. The war on the Western Front turned into a nightmare. Poison gas, introduced by Germany in 1915, choked thousands of soldiers to death. Artillery shells rained down day and night. The enduring Battle of Verdun in 1915, and later the Battle of the Somme in 1916, claimed over 2 million casualties combined, yet the front lines barely moved. Life in the trenches meant mud, disease, rats, and constant fear of death. Both sides were trapped in a war of attrition. It was also during this time that tanks were introduced by the British at the Battle of the Somme. Though unreliable at first, these armoured vehicles would revolutionise warfare in the years to come. The largest naval battle of World War I took place in the North Sea, the Battle of Jutland. The British Royal Navy and the German High Seas Fleet engaged in a brutal clash, with over 250 vessels involved. Though both sides claimed victory, the British maintained control of the North Sea, ensuring that Germany's naval forces remained largely bottled up for the remainder of the war. This battle cemented Britain's naval dominance, but came at the cost of thousands of sailors' lives. Despite the sinking of numerous merchant and passenger ships by German U-boats, most notably the Lusitania in 1915, which cost thousands of American lives, the United States had stayed fairly neutral. However, 1917 brought a turning point. British intelligence intercepted the Zimmermann telegram, a German proposal for Mexico to join the war against the US. In response, President Woodrow Wilson asked Congress to declare war on Germany. On April 6, 1917, the United States entered the conflict, bringing fresh troops and resources to the exhausted Allies. Whilst the US entered, Russia was falling apart. Years of war, food shortages, and unrest led to the Russian Revolution. Tsar Nicholas II abdicated, and by late 1917, the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, seized power. Lenin negotiated peace with Germany, signing the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk in March 1918. Russia exited the war, allowing Germany to shift its focus and forces back to the Western Front. Germany made one last desperate push, the Spring Offensive of 1918. But with the fresh American troops reinforcing the Allies, their offensive was halted. The Allies launched the 100 Days Offensive, pushing German forces back. Meanwhile, revolts broke out in Germany. By November 1918, the German Kaiser abdicated and the government sought peace. The Central Powers crumbled. At the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month, World War I ended. The armistice was signed on November the 11th, 1918. The world breathed a sigh of relief, but the scars of war remained. Over 16 million people died. Entire cities lay in ruins. And yet, this is not the war to end all wars. Within 2 decades, the world will be at war again. In 1919, the Treaty of Versailles officially ended the war, but at a cost. Germany was forced to accept full blame, pay massive reparations, and disarm its military. The harsh conditions fueled resentment, setting the stage for the rise of Adolf Hitler and World War II. Borders were redrawn, new nations emerged, but peace remained fragile. World War I was a war of firsts, the first use of tanks, chemical weapons, and aerial combat. It redrew the world map and altered history forever. But was it inevitable, or could it have been avoided? And if you want more history-packed timelines, please like and subscribe and be ready for the next dive into the past.